Now, Mars and Venus conjunctions. This is one of my favorite conjunctions because it brings a lot of passion into a person's life. It can bring passion to achieve one's goals. It can bring passion to just simply enjoy life, to be youthful. It can bring passion within love. It can keep one interested in life. And too often, with the difficulties that we see in the world, especially if Saturn's involved, a lot of people can get beat down and they can have real difficulty seeing, why is it worth living? But this Mars-Venus combination, when it comes up in transit, if it's in your chart, oftentimes it can reveal this deep passion to see the love within the world. One thing, I posted it on my Facebook page recently. It was a little prayer. And it was the idea of meditating on whatever your concept of divinity is. Please reveal to me, when you're meditating, you say this, please reveal to me all the love I couldn't see. All the love I couldn't see. And when you do that, when you meditate on, please reveal all the love that I cannot see or that I could not see. If you're able to keep your mind clear and focused while reciting that prayer or that intention or affirmation, however you want to look at it, it opens up your mind and your consciousness to see that undercurrent of vitality within the world. Despite all the difficulties, despite all the suffering, it allows you to see why really life is worth living and why all this stuff keeps happening over and over and over again on this wheel of karma, this wheel of rebirth. And this Mars and Venus combination really highlights that, because you got to have the love, the drive to engage life. Mars is your willpower. Love is Venus, which is your compassion. And when you have willpower plus compassion, you're able to achieve so much in life. So this Mars-Venus combination, wherever it's placed, by sign, by house, that's typically where you're going to find a person having a lot of vitality, a lot of passion, a lot of drive, a lot of spontaneity. If it's in the 5th house or the 7th house or the 9th house or the 1st house, this can give a person a very romantic approach to life. This can make a person even very poetic at times, especially if the moon is involved. If it's on the 1st house, it can make a person very youthful and charming and charismatic, or on an angle, 1, 4, 7, and 10, because it will impact that 1st house. But this Mars-Venus combination is all about youthfulness, charm, passion, vitality, and zeal. And so whatever house it's in, that's typically where a person is going to find a lot of drive to engage that house. It's going to be fulfilling because it's going to be challenging. Mars is challenging. But it's going to be fulfilling because Venus is there. And when we get Mars and Venus together, that's a really great combination, because Mars is the trying, the drive, the making something happen, the doing one's best. And Venus is the fulfillment. Venus is, you've made the meal, you've cooked your backyard barbecue, you've slaved over that barbecue all day long. That's Mars. And then Venus is when you set up the picnic table and you get out the plates and you eat it. That's the fulfillment of Venus. So that's why when you've got a strong Mars, but Venus isn't really impacting that Mars, the person isn't always as fulfilled as they could be, because they've got all the hard work, all the drive of Mars, but not the fulfillment of Venus. So Mars and Venus combinations, wherever they're placed, typically give a lot of fulfillment in that area of life, represented by the house in which Mars and Venus are placed. Now, what are some troubles with Mars and Venus? A person can be overly sexual. They can have difficulty with their sexuality. They never feel fulfilled sexually. And again, that's great for our sex therapists in the world, because it keeps them employed. But one of the difficulties with life is that most of us are adolescents, if that. And we have this idea that we're supposed to have wonderful sex all the time, forever. When really, if you withdraw and you contemplate the cycles of life, sexuality is really about procreation. Sure, it's enjoyable, but also going to the bathroom is enjoyable. But do you make that into a fetish? Well, some people might. But point being is that sexuality is a bodily function. It's really wonderful to connect with a partner in that way, someone that you're in a long-term committed relationship with. But if it becomes something that overrides your ability to think clearly, if you're fixated on it, sex becomes too important for you, you can end up ruining your life. That's why in yoga, they often recommend brahmacharya. Now, brahmacharya is often, I think, misunderstood into celibacy. But if you're not meant to be a celibate person, then having a healthy, committed sexual relationship with someone else, one other person, is ideal, if possible. That saves all that time, all that energy. So you see, the whole point of brahmacharya isn't about making yourself celibate, it's about refining your energy. And having sexual impulses is by no means a problem. It's natural. You've got hormones for a reason. But it's when it becomes something that gets in the way of your work, that gets in the way of having healthy relationships, when it's a distraction. And for most people, it ultimately is a distraction. So sexuality can be very good, but it has to be within reason. In the same way that food is exactly, it follows the same pattern. Food is meant to be nourishing and fulfilling and tasty and enjoyable. But are you meant to eat every hour of every day, thousands and thousands and thousands of calories a day? No. You're meant to eat when your body needs it. The same thing with sexuality. You're meant to be sexual when you're with a consenting, respectful adult. And when you're not, you focus on your work, or you focus on your creativity, or you focus on your meditation. So this is one of the difficulties with Mars and Venus, is it can make someone a bit too focused on sexuality, too focused on passion, too focused on intimacy. It can also show a person who gets comfort and enjoyment out of arguing, fighting. And sometimes that's not a problem. If you're a boxer, sure, go knock people out. But if you're not a boxer, picking fights because it's comforting for you is not really the best thing. So, I come from an Italian family, and if you know anything about Italian families, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, arguing and being very loud at times is natural. And so it might be that if you come from a family like that and you get in a relationship with someone who doesn't understand that for you a good fight is just, it makes you feel better, to get it all out. But if you come to a relationship with someone who doesn't have that same kind of understanding, it might actually just hurt people's feelings. So with this Mars and Venus, you have to be very cautious with it. It can push a person too far. It can make a person into an addict of sorts, depending on where it's placed. It can make a person very self-seeking in regards to one's passions and so on. Passion is not a problem. Self-seeking is not a problem. Love is not a problem. Sexuality is not a problem. Enjoying life is not a problem. It becomes a problem when it becomes pathological. And at times, Mars and Venus can indicate a very pathological approach to the area of life in which they're focused. So what do you do with that? Well, that's a tough one, because for you it seems very appropriate to always seek out fulfillment in that way. Best thing I would advise would be working with a counselor to deal with the problem, to find out why do you have these kinds of needs, these obsessions to be met. Why do you need this kind of strong jolt of passion in order to feel fulfilled? I don't necessarily advise you go cold turkey on anything. Now again, I'm also not a psychological or medical professional, so what does my opinion matter? I'm not sure. But if we think about things like spirituality, it's those people who try to restrain their sexuality, who try to restrain their passions to the point of squelching them, that fail the hardest. So it's learning about working with them in a very refined, healthy manner versus just cutting everything off. And if you can do that, you can work with this Mars and Venus very well, be a spiritual person, be a worldly person, be whatever kind of person you want, but you have to approach it with more balance. Buddhism maybe could be very good for a person with this Mars-Venus because it's the middle way, not going to extremes. And often when you've got Mars and Venus, that's what happens. All right, so that's enough for Mars and Venus for now.